been around, and I've been in the country and at home. Yeah.
At home?
Yes.
But I'm not speaking with someone here who sits at home. I'm speaking with someone here who is very well known as a politician who contributes to this country. Just over a month ago, your party held a very important conference. We never saw you there. We tried to ask, where were you? So we never got the answer. Here we are today. Where have you been?
Well, I couldn't attend the conference of the EFF, the NPA, because over a dispute over my suspension. I was suspended about 6 weeks before the conference, and the suspension was unconventional in that it didn't rely on the code of conduct of the EFF summoned by its constitution, but largely the suspension rested on 2 counts.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the leadership said that it's in possession of an intelligence report in which they claim that I'm part of the infiltration strategy by the MKP. I'm working with the MKP. I'm planning to go to join them. I'm waiting for some opportune moment. The second one largely rested on the fact that I knew about the then Deputy President Floyd Shivambu's departure, and I didn't tell the leadership. Of course, I was told to stay at home, cease my participation in Parliament and the rest of the activities of the EFF. And so it was very important for me because they said that the investigation is still ongoing, and when the investigation is finished, I then would be given an opportunity to respond to these allegations. I think we can all agree these are dangerous and very serious allegations. At a later stage, the leadership argued that the report would only be ready after conference, and the matter has been referred to the leadership after the conference. It seemed fair for me to wait to clear my name in relation to these allegations so that I don't function with a cloud, a dark cloud on my head or a gun on my face. As I said, we can all agree these are very serious allegations that one had betrayed the revolution, had been disloyal, and that indeed you are a double agent of some sort. Of course, I can state categorically now that I never planned to join the MKP. I still don't. I never worked with anybody in the MKP in relation to some conspiracy about my departure. And I think that whatever information they say they have was based largely on lies. Secondly, I did know about the departure of Floyd Shivambu. He did come to tell me of his consideration, and indeed I did tell him that, look, you would have to take the leadership into confidence, and he did. The idea that I should have ran behind his back and informed other people or the leadership suggests that I'm an informant, a gossiper, or a wedge driver. I am none of those. It was Floyd's decision. He had to communicate it. It was not my decision. It was his. He had to communicate it, and he did.
Maybe on that issue of you being suspended, so did those investigations continue? Where are they now? What has happened? Has there been finality?
Well, no, I haven't heard of anything. Obviously, the conference constituted a moment of the end of the term of office that I was part of as the leader of the EFF. And I hoped very deeply that post the conference, there would be reconsideration of these positions, in particular, that moment of natural justice, that moment of giving me an opportunity to respond to what are damning allegations from an organization that I gave my life to and that I love. But that has not come through, and I think that we can all read the room. I did, and so can any thinking person. That is why I think it's important to, give the general public a closure on this matter. I will not be pursuing any of that report, because the attitude of the collective leadership is very clear. I don't think there's any interest, and personally as well, I've let it go.
Yeah. So, given that there hasn't been anything that has been forthcoming in terms of explaining that, so do you sometimes, or perhaps feel you were sidelined? We remember, some of us in the media, hearing your name, that you could possibly be one of the top 6 officials. Do you perhaps think that was one way of sidelining you?
Well, it's neither here nor there. I think that, you see, it's now a matter of public record that our leadership has been engaged with President Zuma as well as the MKP for a very long time ago. My count is that over the last 3 to 4 years. It is that tactic of entanglement which, in my view, was responsible for the heavy losses, as it were, that we saw the EFF sustain in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, being overtaken in Mpumalanga, as well as in the National Assembly. Tactics of entanglement. We had already been entangled by the leadership itself, and this entanglement, in my view, which I think it was a miscalculated tactic of entanglement, should be understood for what is responsible for what rocked us, in relation to the departure of the then Deputy President and ultimately Butali. But it's a matter of public record whether they tried to seek his endorsement, cooperation during the elections. You would recall the leadership had on many occasions said, we are one with the MKP and all of that. I think it's really that. I would hope that it had nothing to do with this or that position in the organization, but seemingly the distrust that was invited, in my view, by the departure of the Deputy President, which I think it shouldn't have, because if you accept that you had already entangled us with the MKP, such an occurrence shouldn't have to rock us in the way that it did.
And I hear you speak of a collective, the leadership, but of course the leadership is led by a person. I mean, the recent president who got re-elected is Julius Malema. So he was part of this leadership that you are speaking about, of entangling you with the MK.
Yes, he is part of the leadership collective. And I mean, Mzwai, these are political differences, which we must keep political. Yeah. I have rejected every invitation to make any of these matters personal. They are political. And political disagreements are part of the political evolution of any project. The revolution itself, specifically the revolution that finds its oppressive tentacles in imperialist global forces. So certainly the idea of extracting him as an individual doesn't assist. Yeah. There was a collective project of entangling us tactically to firstly President Zuma and the MKP. And once you come to appreciate what that means, and there are so many historical examples to that effect, which could have assisted you that once you entangle us, you say we're one with the MKP, there are things that are no longer possible. You couldn't say that they are enemies. You couldn't say that Floyd Shivambu is an enemy or is betrayed us, because he did not cross the picket line. Yeah. He didn't join Botha or de Klerk. It's like if somebody left the ANC and joined the PAC. You couldn't cultivate a politics of anonymity. These are the political differences that I think could have been constructively dealt with a full acknowledgement of the consequences of miscalculated tactics of entanglement.
Yes.
You would remember, for an example, 1991 conference of the ANC, Chris Hani is elected.
Yes.
He's participating in the leadership of the ANC as a NWC member, as a member of the National Executive Committee, and so on and so forth. 1992, he resigns all those positions to say that he wants to focus on the SACP. Members of the ANC, in particular National Executive Committee members, couldn't turn and say, Chris is selling out, because Chris did not cross the picket line. Chris is not working with the forces that are opposed to the strategic objectives, in that case, of the National Democratic Revolution. So it would be a pure miscalculation and a denial, as it were, to acknowledge the consequences of forming an entanglement with people, of forming an entanglement with a collective. And I think that, in a sense, that's why it has to be read as, an entire collective leadership, the decisions of that collective leadership, which entangled us in the way that it did. And that is the plateau in which those disagreements played out.
Okay. Because there was, just to conclude on this issue of you being charged. So, has anyone come to you? Because remember, you are the member of the EFF as we sit here. Well, unless there's something I don't know, but from my what I said to you, I heard from you is that you are the member of the EFF. Has anyone come to you, other than you going to them, to say, where's the conclusion and the finality on this matter?
I have made attempts, and so no. The answer is no. I've not gotten any advances that there is any progress in that regard. I don't think there will be, because it's lies. It's lies. At least for me, the public is aware that consistently over the last 3 years, I was on the public record to have it. I mean, I'm fortunate in that sense, that those particular disagreements in relation to the entanglement with the MKP, I was very vocal that it was not wise, I disagreed, but I had been dismissed as having not understood tactics. And to wake up in the morning after all of that and say that I'm the one that is a double agent, it is of biblical absurdity.
Mr. Malema, who used to be very close to you, even sometimes would speak publicly very glowingly of you, of your leadership qualities. So I know you are in the space of politics. Have you somehow reached out to him, you as a person, or has he reached out to you, perhaps to try and look into all these matters?
Look, the obvious answer is no. The suspension was put in a very formal way. And since that suspension, any other interaction that may have been there has mostly been me trying to, to reconstruct whatever that might have been. But as I said, these are political disagreements. They happen. And I have had to make peace with the fact that these political disagreements have occurred, and I've got to move on from them. There's been, of course, all types of attempts to make these matters cross that particular barrier line. All revolutions, as you know, stem from a place of love. Revolution is a high calling that comes from a place of love, and there is no cause in the world that requires more love than the cause of the liberation of black people. Because black people are people who are hated across the world and who are socialized to hate themselves. You couldn't engage in a politics of liberating them, which degenerates into forms of indignity, humiliation. And that's really all I have for my brothers and sisters in the EFF. Love.
Okay, let's get this one very right. Do you still remain the member of the EFF?
I have taken a decision to step away completely from party politics. I'm leaving party politics. I think I've made my contribution in that space. We don't live in a one-party state. We're not in the camps. We're not banned. Politics are a free activity in South Africa. And party politics are not the monopoly of making social contribution. I think after this episode, I've taken a decision to leave all of party politics and contribute in the first instance to the academy. In the second instance, I'm very, very passionate about the upliftment of levels of discourse in the country. But most importantly, I think the terrain of struggle that has been neglected over the years is the civil society space. That civil society space, I'm interested in it because it is where you are able to cultivate and agitate the notions of freedom, where liberation is about the people. Yeah. The people liberate themselves. And community development, research, advocacy. You know, it's time somebody did for the people of this country what AfriForum is doing for the Afrikaners. Yeah. I think that is the civil society space that one is having a conversation and thinking about. I'm saying that party politics don't monopolize the contribution to social change. And I have taken a decision to step out.
So, I just want to get you right. I don't want to second guess you. Mm-hmm. You're saying you're leaving party politics.
I'm leaving party politics.
And my question is very direct. Mm-hmm. Are you still a member of the EFF?
I have left the EFF. I have left party politics. EFF is a political party. I have handed over my resignation as a member, and it is because where I want to go and contribute, I can't hold a single party membership. But overall, I think that I've made my contribution, and I think that there are brilliant young men and women, old men and women as well, in the space that will continue in that category, as it were, of party politics. I think I'll contribute elsewhere in the remaining decades of my life.
Yeah, I think that answer somehow almost nullifies some of the questions I wanted to ask. But of course, I would still ask them differently.
Okay.
So, how many attempts did you have when people saw that you are in some sort of a limbo in terms of joining them?
So I was not in a limbo, Mzwandile. Yeah. I was suspended.
Okay, yes.
And such a suspension was posited as being extraordinary, and therefore it did not use the legal instruments available in the organizational constitution, which means that it was very difficult, as it were, to could have acted in any other way, because I didn't want to destroy, distract, disrupt an organization that I had spent the past 11 years of my life building and contributing to its unity, its stability, and its impact in society. I have no interest in that. My interest from the beginning was in the economic emancipation movement. I have no doubt in my heart sitting here that the leadership acted from a position of trying to protect the mission, of trying to protect the organization. Yeah. I have no doubt in my heart that the mission of economic emancipation in our lifetime is still very much alive as an objective of their actions. I disagree, of course, with the way they handled my matter. But certainly I think that the cause, and I would hope that that becomes the focus. The focus becomes the reason we formed the EFF, which is economic freedom in our lifetime. And those ideas, fortunately for the EFF, and this is the powerful achievement of the EFF, have spread. Who would have thought that the Ramaphosa will sound like Robert Mugabe? That he would read in terms of expropriation of land from the script of the economic freedom fighters. Who would have thought that those ideas would be in parliament today? When we started, they were only in the EFF. At the moment, you can count more than 4 political parties that have accepted these ideas. And that was the objective, because even though one was not expelled, I was not suspended or expelled from the ANC, we left in faith of the fact that the ANC and the establishment sought to destroy Julius Malema, to try and scare all of us, that if you raise these ideas, this is what will happen to you. And today, they have become the hegemony of progressive political discourse in South Africa. It's a great achievement of the EFF itself. I am leaving party politics, but I am fully aware, although I fundamentally disagree with how my matter was dealt with, I think that the leadership still has the best interest of the revolution at heart.
Talking about President Ramaphosa, I mean, you a couple of days ago tweeted something that was quite interesting. You said, well, we were misled about Ramaphosa. I'm just paraphrasing.
Yeah.
We were misled about Ramaphosa, and then you started mentioning why you're saying that, because you felt some of what he is doing now is radical and perhaps progressive. So were you misled, and misled by who?
We grew up in the circles of left-wing thinking, left-wing formations within the mass democratic movement. In those circles, President Cyril Ramaphosa is characterized as part of the wide South Africa's capitalist establishment, and the fact that he became a billionaire did not help. And certainly, part of that discourse is that he will always act in the best interest of the white capitalist establishment. His emails in Marikana did not help because he characterized workers as criminals, justifying the action that then occurred, the Marikana massacre. The CR17 statements did not help to find the names of these capitalists who have funded his internal ANC campaign. But who would have thought one day, I would have never bet anything. I would have eat anything, if there was anything, I would have bet against the idea that one day it would be Ramaphosa who says, you keep your America and I will keep my South Africa, to the most powerful man in the world, together with the most richest man in the world, in defense of nil compensation. Of course, from our circles as radical left, it's not enough. The Expropriation Act doesn't go far enough. Yeah. But you're not just looking at that act. There's the Palestinian matter. President Ramaphosa's government did not just say two-state solution, didn't just condemn the Gaza bombardment by Israel. It stated that Israel is a genocidal state and took them to The Hague. No white puppet acts like that. Coupled with the Bella Bill, the NHI, and all these policies have really agitated and disrupted both domestic and global white capitalist establishment, let alone the imperialist forces. It is that credit that I'm giving it to him. The thing that he has broken with that statement that day was the idea that the sitting head of state in South Africa must always tiptoe and be diplomatic around white privilege and white interests. To speak like that, he broke a specific discourse, particularly from official state, types of traditional ways of speaking. He broke it, and for the first time, he was very clear that we're not going to be bullied, we're going to transform this country. Of course, the work has to go in, that there must be action to that effect. It is that credit that I was just basically accruing to that. And certainly I think that any logical person will be able to understand that because it doesn't come out of trying to whitewash him.
Yeah. What did you make of the barrage of criticism from, in the main, some of the people who used to be your comrades to say, all of a sudden you were misled. So what did you make of that?
Well, I think they were non-substantial. It is the degenerate culture of ad hominem attacks, of playing the man and not the ball. The substance of the argument rested on the rest of the other things that were said. So when you are engaging in public discourse, you've got to choose from where to respond, and certainly for me, that was the substantial point, and to the extent to which it was substantial, I didn't see a lot of disagreement. I think many people accepted that there is this new information about Cyril Ramaphosa, which forces us not to read people in a one-dimensional way.
You've just mentioned AfriForum, Basically, you are saying you are going to a setup that mimics the kind of work they do. But of course, you know, as recently as yesterday or the day before, we've had an executive order signed by the president of the US, which was lobbied by organizations like AfriForum, so which basically give those who want to go to United States as refugees. So it's so I mean, what's your take on that one? I mean, after just speaking about AfriForum now, so what do you make of all of this?
Well, first of all, the civil society space is not a mimic, and it's not unique. It is not even an initiative, as it were. In the history of the liberation struggle, there's been a lot of civil society work. I think that AfriForum is trying to mimic the civil rights movement. It's trying to mimic the UDF. It's trying to mimic all those organizations, the anti-apartheid movement. But what it truly is, AfriForum, it's a racist counter-revolutionary package that is at the center of undermining progress in South Africa, that is at the center of undermining the objectives of making equality possible. It is informed by the refusal and the fear that sometimes reigns within the white community of being scared of equality. I know they will not be able to go anywhere in the world where they will be able to sustain the white privilege and the racism that sustains their existence in South Africa. Of course, if they decided to leave to the US, we must all in unison say good riddance to anybody in the world who does not buy into the principles of justice, of equality, and above all, of transformation. This country has a responsibility to resolve inequalities, including those that stem from apartheid and colonization, and the land is at the center of it. Anybody who wants peace in South Africa needs to legally, to calmly deal with the land question. AfriForum is not contributing to that. As a matter of fact, it's part of reactionary counter-revolutionary forces who actually will celebrate at the destruction of South Africa's society.
Let's touch on the GNU. What's your opinion of the GNU? So would you have constituted it this way, or would you'd have gone differently?
I think that there should still be a rigorous conversation. And as I said to the tweet that you mentioned earlier, my hope is that there would be radical, selfless, non-egotistical conversation in the progressive left. Because whether we like it or not, the moment of the absence of MKP and the EFF in the GNU basically donated the ANC to the liberal establishment. And they are waging a war. That was a very weak ANC, an ANC at 40% and all of that. Of course, some of these concerns for why that didn't happen have legitimacy. But my hope is that there would be, a radical conversation for the progressive forces in the country, so that you are not in a coalition government in which every day you are disagreeing about Bella Bill, about Expropriation Act, about NHI, that the battles would be put elsewhere in the implementation of the things that will improve the living conditions of our people, not in the policies that are a heritage of liberation, a heritage of the anti-colonial and liberation struggle. And so I look forward, I'm hoping that day will come when the progressive forces will be able to work together unapologetically to transform South Africa inside government.
Well, obviously you're no longer the member of parliament. I don't think progressive forces, particularly in parliament, see themselves that way now, I think after recent events, because I think your former leader has basically said they don't want to see MK anywhere. And what is your take on MK as a party existing, and then why do you think they somehow can't find each other with the EFF? I know you said that entanglement could have caused this. Just Your own
No. I think that there has to be some honest reflection on the part of both forces to appreciate that it's certainly on the part of the leadership of the EFF, there was a tactic, a deliberate tactic of entangling us, first with President Zuma and secondly with the MKP, to the extent that there was complete policing that we don't criticize the MKP during the elections. Despite the fact that on the ground, we could see that it's costing us. And the second part is to appreciate that the cause is about our people. The cause is above the colors. The cause is written in the blood of the fallen fighters from the wars of colonial dispossession, as well as up to, Marikana. That is the cause. And we've got to be able, as it were, to rise above, because I totally disagreed with the MKP. I totally disagreed with President Zuma. But there are 2.3 million people behind that political party, which is speaking your language, which is borrowing from your script. But these people are also largely the working class. They are the oppressed. These people, you cannot say they're the enemy. You cannot say that you can't work with them. I don't know on which political, progressive, theoretical basis would you arrive at that conclusion. You can't do that. The ANC in 1959 couldn't wake up and say the PAC, because it broke away from them, it couldn't wake up and say the PAC is an enemy. On the basis of what? In the political discourse, in the political literature, including in your own documents, would you characterize that particular outfit which you were entangled to, which you entangled yourself to? You wake up in the morning without explanation and say they are now an enemy. The SACP, for an example, couldn't wake up in the morning and say the ANC in 1944, in 1947, in 1952, they couldn't wake up in the morning and say these are enemies, because you are all fighting against the destruction of apartheid. There is a picket line. If you've been, as it were, an activist, a political activist, political action must always be grounded in political explanations. The picket line is what draws us between friends and enemies of the revolution. I think that that time will come. There was a time, you would know, Mzwai, when we fiercely fought President Zuma. And, one day we were entangled with him. 6-7 years later, we were entangled with him. And that tells you that these disagreements are temporary, because the conditions on the ground will dictate that you cannot be few. You can't afford, as the people who want progress in this country, to constantly enjoy being divided by the enemy. Your success lies in uniting your forces. And who are these forces? It's the working class. It's the workers, it's the unemployed, it's the black people, it's the coloreds, and so on. And those are the forces. You always have to act in their interest. And I really think that the conditions are going to dictate certainly towards that direction.
Well, moving towards closure now, you did indicate that you're moving towards academia, towards civil society. Just perhaps if you can just summarize exactly where is Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi going, Ndlozi going now that you are out of party politics?
As I said, until recently, I didn't have any thoughts of leaving the EFF or leaving party politics. And so it is only safe to say at this moment, that is my consideration. That is the direction that my life is taking. What is important today is to bring closure to the public, to the people that we had served. I will cherish my days. It was a privilege to have been given that opportunity to serve in Parliament, to serve in the various structures of the EFF. I will cherish those days of my life, all my living days. I will cherish that particular privilege, and three aspects with which I'm going to be going into my direction. I'm fortunate that in the way I have developed in my life as a young man, I was never a one-dimensional person. So I will put all my talents into service in the academy, as well as contributing to the upliftment of public discourse, but certainly the conversation with all South Africans of a common mind of how do we constitute a civil society outfit that emphasizes that the people are the liberators, that emphasizes community development, that emphasizes the notions of freedom in which we fight against the conditions that stop us from being responsible for ourselves, but also that is steeped in research as well as advocacy, very, very ground-driven. As the civil society organizations and the civil society speech, which stems from our constitution, by the way, that we had seen in democracies, but certainly in the liberation struggle. I think that space is a space that we have neglected, and is the space where even the renewal of the entire political terrain in South Africa may come from. So that's basically where I want to go put my energies. And I must state on the record that I hold nothing whatsoever personal against my brothers and sisters in the EFF. And I really wish them the best. And I wish that they could continue with the same commitment that we had demonstrated over the last 11, 12 years in advancing the cause of economic freedom in our lifetime.